I think there's a chance that Charles Grant is going to become a superstar player for the Las Vegas Raiders. And I don't say this lightly. I love what this guy has flashed on tape. And I know he's a rookie and he's raw and he needs to develop. But the traits that this guy has is incredible. And it's not just traits. He actually puts it out there on tape. And I'm going to show you guys like 7-8 plays in today's video that actually makes me believe the Raiders have their franchise tackle in Charles Grant. And I want to just take you guys back. If you guys have not followed me over the last like 6-7 years, when I first started, I was a huge believer in Kolton Miller. I said, I think this guy's really good. And the reason why was because Kolton Miller moved really well.
I'm happy we got Kolton Miller. In fact, I would take Kolton Miller over Mike McGlinchey as well for a number of reasons. I think Kolton Miller has way more potential and a way higher ceiling. I think Mike McGlinchey might not have that long of a career because of the fact that if you watch him play, he doesn't have great bend. He doesn't have great flexibility.
Right? He moved absolutely incredibly well coming out of UCLA. And although some people were saying, hey, to cut Kolton Miller after the first 2 seasons, I was 100% invested in him. I said, I think this guy becomes a really good offensive tackle. And he's become that, right? I think Kolton Miller's a top 10 offensive tackle. I think he's a very productive player. Not only he's had some injury issues, but Kolton Miller's developed really well for the Raiders. And then over the past 2 seasons, we've needed a right tackle, and the Raiders have had 2 different guys. And if you guys go back the last 2 years, I was not sold on either of these 2 guys. I was not sold on Thayer Munford. I was not sold on DJ Glaze. And I'm not saying I'm like super smart and I know what I'm talking about when it comes to offense tackles. But Charles Grant has some of what Kolton Miller flashed. And truth be told, Charles Grant actually might be ahead of Kolton Miller based off the 1 game that we watched in his rookie season. Now, I think there's a real chance Charles Grant's going to win the right tackle job. I think he's going to struggle in his first season a little bit. He's going to get beat up a little bit, right, given it's his first season. And he's going from left tackle to right tackle. And I'll show you guys some examples of just the little things that he'll have to fix going to that right tackle position and why it is a harder, move to go from left tackle to right tackle. But I think based off the traits, and we're going to really focus in on the traits, the handwork, the technique. And keep in mind, this comes at the left tackle position. So when he switches over to the right tackle, he's going to have to kind of redevelop that. I think this guy has it, man. And let's just get right into the tape. Let's get right into what makes Charles Grant different. It's essentially going to be the movement, right? It's the quickness, the suddenness, the processing, all of these little things you're seeing on tape and just how explosive he is. This translates really well. You will never see a Hall of Fame caliber offensive tackle that can't move well. And I'm not saying Charles Grant's Hall of Fame. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you will not find a great offensive tackle in the NFL or in the Hall of Fame that was not an elite mover. And that's the basis of being a good offensive tackle, which is why I was able to predict that Thayer Munford and DJ Glaze were not going to have success. And Thayer Munford, I knew right away. He just was not quick, could not move. And that's just the indicator of you're not going to be good. Because in the NFL, there's 30 different types of defensive ends. There's the maxx Crosbys who, they have good movement and suddenness. They're not like super elite when it comes to speed. They have good hands. Then there's guys like Von Miller, guys like Michael Parsons. And, there's guys that just move really, really, really incredibly well. And then there's the Myles Garrett on the other side of this. Just crazy power, super strong. Now, Myles Garrett's obviously kind of freaky, but as an offensive tackle, my point is you have to be able to match that speed first and foremost, right? Because there's a lot of guys that are super fast at the defensive end position, but you got to be strong enough as well. And Charles Grant's kind of flashed both of these things. But the movement is where it really starts. And I want to just show you guys this play right here as the first play. You're going to see that the Raiders are actually going to be in empty, and you're going to see that Charles Grant does a really, really, really good job processing and then changing direction. Now, you might not even notice what kind of happens on this play. So let's break this down a little bit. So pre-snap, Charles Grant obviously has this defensive end essentially to the outside of him, right? This is obviously his guy right now based off of the big on big pass protection rules. But the empty formation does have one little caveat within it, which is you essentially take the biggest threat to your inside if that ends up coming. And on this play here, Nick Bolton ends up blitzing, and Charles Grant does a phenomenal job picking it up and getting his hands to this guy. And just to kind of make it clear, Charles Grant is not assigned this linebacker, and you can tell based off his footwork. As soon as he gets out of his stance, he's getting vertical, or in this instance, he's taking a 45-degree set. He's essentially taking this 45-degree set outwards. You can tell by his footwork how he's going out left. He's not jump setting the linebacker. If he had the linebacker, he would step forward towards the linebacker. That's not what's happening here. So what you're seeing on this play is elite change of direction, right? Being able to go left, right? Getting into that vertical set, and then coming back to that linebacker and processing that this guy's blitzing. That's really good processing. It's really good change of direction. Your body's able to make this play happen. I wanted to show you guys a play from Dylan Parham against the Washington Commanders. Very similar situation, empty formation. Dylan Parham, right, if you think about the big on big rules, has the 3 technique on this one. And you're going to see the linebacker ends up blitzing, and you're going to see that he's not going to be able to make the block. Now, he gets his hand out there, but I just think Dylan Parham just was not fast enough to kind of get to this guy, right? Based off the pass protection rules, this is on Dylan Parham. Obviously, see the quarterback kind of get sacked on this one. This is the difference between Charles Grant, who has elite movement, versus Dylan Parham. And I'm not a fan of Dylan Parham, right? Obviously, he'll develop and still continue to get better. But this is why the Raiders have to obviously fix the offensive line, right? But this obviously is not talking about offensive line in general, just talking about Charles Grant. That's a really good play right there. He's a rookie, very first ever official start. Just look at the movement, right? And, the movement, the processing is something you're going to see from Grant. He does a really good job at that, right? I think when it comes to offense tackles, the movement I would say is like in the top 1%. The processing's pretty good as well, right? So he's in like the top 25% right now. Keep in mind, he's just a rookie, and processing something you get better at over the course of your career. So I think he'll still continue to kind of shine in that instance. Let's talk about processing, right? Let's talk about movement. Let's talk about brain power. On this one here, you got a 3rd down, 3rd and 9, true pass rushing situation. You got 7 blockers, 6 rushers. And initially, Charles Grant has the defensive end. And you also are going to see that there's a wide alignment by number 51 here. So what this means is there's a chance that there's going to be some sort of defensive line game. If 51 here does not have that wide alignment, if let's say he's lined up to the inside of the left guard here, he might not be running a defensive line game. But when he's that far wide, there's a good chance this guy's going to fire upfield, maybe even outwards, and that defensive end on the outside is going to end up going to the inside. And on this play here, you see Charles Grant do a really, really, really good job. And it starts right away, right? Just explosive get off. He takes like 3 steps, and then on that 4th step, he opens up the hips. The right leg comes back a little bit. It is a really nice job with the hands. And the hands is something you're going to notice with Charles Grant. So one of the things that's very important for an offensive tackle, this is going to be one of the big adjustments that he's going to have to make going from left tackle to right tackle. So on that play right there, you're going to notice that as a left tackle, you have your left hand into the ground, your left leg is back, right leg is forward. So you're almost angled this way, right, which is my left. As a right tackle, it's the opposite, right? As a right tackle, you're going to be angled this way a little bit. And the footwork and kind of where your feet are aligned, that's easy. Do it 500 times, 2 weeks, like practice at home, you get used to it. But the hands is the thing that's going to be the adjustment for Charles Grant. So at left tackle on this play right here, you see him do a great job with the hands, right? So on the defensive line game, notice exactly where the hands are going to land, right? The left hand lands high to the shoulder pad. The right hand lands to the inside. And to me, that is absolutely perfect. The way his hands land on this guy, really, really, really impressive. And you'll see this over the course of this video. And I'll just continue to point it out as we kind of see it on these plays. As a left tackle, that's exactly where you want, right? Your left hand's high, your right hand is on the inside. And this is where, as an offense tackle, you want your hands. Now, obviously, when he goes to the right tackle, it'll be the opposite. Left hand will have to hit the inside, right hand will have to land high. That's going to be the one adjustment he'll have to make, and I think that's the bigger and harder adjustment he'll have to make when he goes over to that right tackle position. All right, oftentimes people talk about switching sides and talking about how, your stance is the thing you have to improve. The stance is the easier part, right? So the hands and how you strike guys, that's the harder part to understand when you go from left tackle to right tackle, because naturally, if you play left tackle for 5 years, you're used to how your hands are striking, right? So again, I think that's going to be one of the things you'll have to really adjust and kind of figure out. And that will be part of what's going to get him in trouble early on in his career. But again, 1 or 2 years, he'll be good to go. But at left tackle, we're seeing the glimpses, right? We're seeing the flashes. We're seeing the potential. You see the understanding of 51 being aligned wide, and then the processing and passing it off and getting back and then shutting it down. And there's multiple examples of this. And the guy only played like 60 snaps this season, right? And a lot of these were as like a 6th offensive lineman. But you saw this even against the Giants, where he took like 10 snaps where he actually came in at left tackle. Same situation on this one. He does a great job going up against the defensive end. Obviously, you see the defensive line game on this one. Now, the thing that I like about this is, you got the wide 9 alignment by the defensive end. So what that means is Charles Grant has to get super vertical. He has to make that ground up and make sure the wide nine does not beat him around the corner. So he gets super vertical, but he recognizes that defensive end is actually running the game. That defensive end is trying to get essentially a runway where he can get up to full speed, and he's trying to hit that left guard to get him off balance. He's trying to make that left guard not recognize that he's about to get blindsided. So Grant does a great job with the hands, and he passes this off really well. He makes sure that the left guard does not get hit on this one. And as he passes it off, he also ends up coming right back to his man. He shuts his man down. Now, I want you guys to just watch this play in real time to think how explosive this is. Right? The movement, the explosive first steps, the processing, the pass off. To me, this right here is not easy to do. I guarantee you guys this right now, right? Thayer Munford is not doing this today. And Charles Grant did this in his first official start. Even DJ Glaze is nowhere near as quick. He's nowhere near as, just the movement. Like DJ Glaze is nowhere near this type of movement. And again, movement, I think, is the biggest indicator of, a guy's going to end up becoming an all-pro or a guy's not going to end up becoming an all-pro, right? And Charles Grant, you just see it, the movement. And this applies to pass pro and the run game as well. As when it comes to run game, watch this reach block on this one. You're going to have a 7-yard run on this one by the running back. This is an outside zone to the right. Phenomenal job reaching the 4-eye technique. Again, explosive, really, really, really good job. Gets the right hand into the chest. Left hand ends up grabbing onto the shoulder pad. Good job with the hands. And then look at him just turn the hips, cuts the defensive end off. And of course, keep in mind on this play, the running back actually hits this into Charles Grant's gap. This play right here is generated by Charles Grant. Keep in mind, this is a play to the right side. The play should hit to the right. Now, this is outside zone and not wide zone. So the Raiders this year are going to be running a lot more wide zone, which is the Klint Kubiak style of runs. They look similar, but they are different. Wide zone's really meant to hit the outside, right? On this play here, though, Charles Grant, right, you see that reach block. So if there's a backside reach block that this guy has to make when we run wide zone to the left, it's going to kind of look similar to this, right? He's going to have to get in front of guys. So he fits the scheme really well, right? This guy's going to fit the Klint Kubiak scheme really well. To me, really, really nice job. Also, really good job processing on this next play. You're going to have a split zone, 7 yards. Once again, this cuts right off of Charles Grant. Now, I'm not going to lie to you guys, man. When I said earlier that I think this guy has top 25% when it comes to his brain power, the processing, the IQ, it's plays like this right here that really, really, really impressed me. On this play here, if you slow it down, think about all that Charles Grant does within this play, right? You see him check the guy that essentially Mafi ends up blocking. He checks this guy because this guy goes to the outside, right, to the left side of Mafi. Charles Grant has to make contact with him and then essentially push him downwards. But he doesn't. The guy ends up going to the inside of Mafi, so Grant lets that go. And then Grant's responsibility within this is to actually get to the inside of this linebacker. So on a split zone, the way this should work is Grant ends up hitting that linebacker, and then the tight end on the wham block ends up hitting the backside defensive man. But on this play, the Chiefs actually end up running a run stunt. So what ends up happening is the defensive end crashes super hard to the inside, while the linebacker takes the guy to the outside. And on this play, Grant not only checks the guy to the inside, he recognizes the run stunt, and instead of being like super fixed on the linebacker, which I'm going to be honest with you guys, man, early on this season, guys like Stone Forsythe, DJ Glaze, these guys were not making this read, in my opinion, right? What ends up happening is those guys are so fixated on that linebacker, they only stick to that linebacker. So what ends up happening is the linebacker goes outside, no one blocks the defense man, he blows the play up, right? Or the tight end hits the defensive end, and there's no gap, right? And, essentially the Chiefs are running this run stunt, and still, Grant does a really good job making the adjustment mid-block. And instead of taking the linebacker who runs to the outside, he ends up taking the defensive end. He stops him, and of course, Michael Mayer also kind of hits him at the same time. And you see that gap kind of develop right underneath him, right? So to me, really, really, really good job. As that tight end kind of makes contact, Grant kind of processes at the same time. And you get 7 yards on this split zone run. Phenomenal processing, right? You cannot look at these plays and say this is not a good job. And just to kind of go full circle, I showed you guys the reach block on the outside zone run where he was the backside reach. I showed you guys a split zone where running back ends up kind of hitting it right back into his gap. You'll also see another play where it's a split zone, but this time he's on the backside of the split zone. And he's going to do a phenomenal job making contact with this defensive tackle. And then you see him just straight push this guy out of the gap. I cannot tell you guys how impressive this play is right here. And this is impressive to me because, at this point within this play, there's two things that could happen. Either this defensive tackle holds the ground, he essentially shrinks the gap, and no gap really develops, right? There's just a clutter, and the running back picks up no yards. Or on the other side of this, which is what offensive linemen are taught, they're taught to move that guy as far outwards as you can. Yes, you're the backside anchor. Your guy cannot beat you to the inside or over the top or underneath you or whatever. But if you can, push that guy out of there. And here's the thing with this play that I think people are going to overlook a little bit. As soon as these guys make contact, the D tackle could technically hold this gap, but the footwork, the ability to chop those feet and just move a guy out of there. One thing that I would never forget from when I played football was one of the things they taught you was, you never want to stop your feet. You never want to try pushing like 1 foot at a time. Even, when you make contact with the guy, never push 1 foot at a time. Chop those feet, right? And I know a lot of you guys who played offensive line or coached offensive line, I know a lot of you guys are going to understand this. If you're pushing a truck or car or whatever, you don't push 1 foot at a time in hopes that like the movement happens. If the car is not moving that you're trying to push, just start chopping your feet and push as you're chopping, and you're going to generate more movements, physics. And this guy does it. Look at the feet, right? On this play, look at the feet. Look at the chopping happening. And then you see this 330-pound defense tackle get moved out of the gap. But to me, that's impressive as hell. He's technically on the front side of a split zone, right? So the running back comes this way. The running back just hits it, right? Most of the time, the running back ends up like cutting it back, as we saw in that other play, right? But on this one here, he's on the front side, and he does a really good job on the front side. I early on this season had talked about DJ Glaze. Some of you guys might remember this, maybe week 1 or 2. On the front side of a run play, if you're that tackle, you need to try moving your guy, right? Try to widen that gap a little bit. Charles Grant has shown us he can do that. It was another example from the Giants game where he did the same exact thing. He essentially is on the front side, and he moves his guy like 5 yards to the left. And the play doesn't pick up any yards. You see a guy ends up kind of missing his block. But the point of this is this is something Charles Grant can do, right? He has really good power. He has really good strength. And the crazy part with Grant is he hasn't even, I feel like, fully developed his body yet, right? I think if John Gruden's son, Deuce, can get this guy like and I know Deuce is not technically like the person in charge of like the programs, like the weight programs, like there's a guy above him. But if they can add like 10 pounds of muscle on this guy, watch out. There's going to be no defensive lineman, there's going to be no D tackle or linebacker that's going to be able to match the power that this guy has. He has really good power. And you see that on multiple plays. Take this next play right here. Really solid stopping power in pass pro. Now on this one here, he's going to do what is called a jump set. This is 3rd and 10. And just look at the explosiveness, man. Just straight up anchors down against this defensive tackle. And the crazy thing with this play right here is number 90 gets a really good jump. Look at this. Number 90 explodes out of there. He's the first guy to move. Technically, this guy should be able to penetrate and get through that gap and maybe, get to the quarterback potentially. But Charles Grant is fast, super explosive himself. And then look at the hands, man. Right hand lands right to the inside. Really good job right here. And he just drops the anchor, and you can actually see him drop the anchor. If you guys watch the hips, you watch the feet, as soon as he makes contact with this defensive tackle, he drops the anchor. Now, I do want to just kind of point this out. The way he drops that left leg, I don't know if it's too far. I don't know if it's like that could potentially get him in trouble. If you're trying to anchor down against Jalen Carter, maybe he kind of like side shuffles you, and then because that left foot's so back, maybe you're off balance. But I have noticed this a couple different times. When he tries to anchor, sometimes that left foot does drop kind of far back. So again, I don't know if this is like an issue necessarily, but it could be. Just wanted to kind of bring that up. But just again, it's a really good wrap, right? Regardless, the fact that that defensive tackle has a crazy jump and he still anchors down, to me, really impressive. You saw a little bit of physicality on his tape as well. In college, if you guys watch Charles Grant, the guy used to throw people, right? If you guys ever watch Tyler Smith's tape in college, right? Tyler Smith's the left guard of the Dallas Cowboys. At Tulsa, Tyler Smith played left tackle. And the way he would like throw people was freaking crazy, right? You'd watch this guy just tossing people. Now he's playing at Tulsa. I think Tulsa is better than William and Mary. It's probably a little bit higher. But at William and Mary, this guy was kind of doing the same thing where he would toss people, and he'd pancake people and put people down. And it's like he's not super aggressive. Like his mentality isn't really super aggressive, but like you can sometimes see a little bit of that physicality. And I don't know, maybe he is physical, and maybe he does have that aggressive mindset and those tendencies to be physical. Maybe nastiness is the right word. He might have that. I don't know, to be honest with you guys. I hope he has that, but there are some plays on tape where he does do a pretty good job. All right, you see that physicality. There's plays where he'll make contact with guys and he'll stop them. Like a guy might have a running head start, like you'll see on this one. He's going to end up doing a really good job processing, and he stays super low. Nick Bolton is trying to jump that gap, and he stops him right in his tracks. Right now, Nick Bolton does get off the block late, but do keep in mind as a linebacker, you don't want to have to run backwards to get off a block. Like Nick Bolton spins, but he spins backwards, so he's like 5 yards off the line of scrimmage. You want to try to go through the block. You want to try to use your hands to beat the guy right away, right? You don't want to give up ground as a linebacker, but it's still a pretty good job by Charles Grant on this one to kind of stop Nick Bolton in his tracks. To me, this guy does a really good job with power. He does a really good job anchoring and stopping people. Now, I don't want to say like he's already elite, right? He has to still fine tune these things. He has to still develop these things. But at left tackle, he looks good, right? And keep in mind, he's a rookie, so rookies generally come into the NFL, and you're going to have a lot of losing snaps. And the thing is, there's different types of offensive linemen to look at, right? I want to just make a quick point. I want to show you guys some of this guy's hand striking as well, just to really make the point. And then we'll also talk about some of the bad reps he had. But there's different types of offensive linemen, and some teams will draft certain guys, other teams will draft other guys, right? We'll use Joe Alt as an example. And, Joe Alt obviously is playing really well right now. I know he got hurt this season, and he played really well his rookie season. But the type of structure that Joe Alt has, some teams would not draft that type of structure, right? And what that means is a guy that's like 6'9", and he's not super fluid, right? He's pretty quick, especially for being like 6'8", 6'9", but he's not super fluid, right? You look at Charles Grant, super fluid. Tyler Guyton, super fluid. You look at Colt Miller, obviously super quick, but like Bernard Ryman, left tackle of the Indianapolis Colts, super fluid. Lane Johnson, super fluid. These guys came out and they're really, really, really fast, but their body wasn't fully developed. Charles Grant fits that same mold. On the other side, you got guys like Joe Alt. You got guys like Mike McGlinchey, right? Mike McGlinchey's a great example of this. McGlinchey came to the NFL. He was a top 10 tackle his first 2-3 years. He has an injury. The speed slows down, and he's just not as good anymore, right? People don't even talk about Mike McGlinchey at this point. But remember, he was drafted ahead of Colton Miller. You can look at guys like Darnell Wright. I love Darnell Wright. He was my number one tackle coming out that year. I had him ahead of Paris Johnson Jr. Darnell Wright's not super fluid. So there's a chance in 2 or 3 more years, like, is he going to continue to be quick, or by the time he's 31 years old, is he going to slow down a lot, right? And I'm not making a point that one is not the way to draft and the other is the way to draft, but to keep in mind, there's different type of offense tackles, and I think a lot of teams value the quicker, fluider offensive tackles because there's more upside with those guys, especially long term. Right? We see Lane Johnson kind of doing it right now. Really, really fluid. The guy's a superstar, obviously the best tackle in the NFL. Now, I'm not saying that like one is better than the other, right? Because both can have a lot of success, but keep in mind, Charles Grant might not be great right now, right? He might not be elite right now. He still has to develop some of these things, but the traits are really, really, really good, right? And that's my whole point, right? Is teams draft for traits. So sometimes a team might say, hey, we don't want Darnell Wright. We'd rather have Paris Johnson Jr. because Darnell Wright might not have the long-term, ability to play in the NFL, essentially, right? The Mike McGlinchey effect. We had, I believe it was Orlando Brown came out of, I believe, Ohio State. Really good tape, but just was not that fast. He ended up going in the 4th round. But his tape was really, really, really good. Let's talk about traits. Let's kind of stick to that point and let's wrap it up talking about this guy's traits. So one of the things you're going to notice is he's a really good striker with his hands, right? He does a great job with the hands. You'll see this multiple times where He's able to, just the way his hands land. I already mentioned left hand inside, right hand. I'm sorry, right hand inside, left hand high to the shoulder pad. As a left tackle, he'll have to develop those hands to the other side, right? A left hand will land to the inside, right hand will have to land high to the shoulder pad to kind of hold. One of the things you see right now on tape is he does a really good job of this, right? There's multiple examples where the right hand lands perfectly to the chest, and sometimes he even mixes it up. Sometimes he'll even use like independent hands where he'll like flash one hand. A guy will, potentially knock that hand down, and the other hand comes and essentially grabs onto this guy, and he grips on and he shuts it down essentially, right? There's plays where he not tries, but he ends up utilizing the latch technique. So one of the things that you can do when you have a long wingspan, right, or you have those 35 plus inch arms, which this guy has, is you can latch and you can grab onto the inside with just one hand. And you're going to see on this play here, he's going to latch with his left hand. And this defensive end tries breaking the latch, and he doesn't. The defensive end's hands come down, tries breaking it, the left hand stays attached. And the defensive end tries not only breaking the hands, he tries going outside, inside, and Grant just shuts it down, right? He has a really good grip onto that inside chest. And this is a technique that Tom Cable used to teach. I remember when Colt Miller was in his first couple seasons. I remember he used to do the latch technique a lot. I haven't really seen him do it as much now. I know Tom Cable used to teach this because there was a guy that was an offensive lineman for under Tom Cable. He did not like Tom Cable. He used to talk crap about Cable to me and say he hates how he's always so like picky and these type of things. But anyways, this guy does that, right? He does that already on tape where he'll latch onto a guy. So he does a really nice job with the hands, with the latching. And, the latch only works if you have the footwork to match, right? So you grab on with the left hand. If the defensive end goes right, the left hand stays attached, the feet move to the right. The left hand stays attached, right? The defensive end tries going back to the left. You got to be able to move your feet back that way. And you stay right in front of him, and that hand stays attached the entire time. Right? It's called latch and mirror. Some people call it latch and mirror. I just call it latch technique. Same thing. His hands are they land well, right? And that's kind of my point. I think you pair up some of what we're seeing, right? Quickness, super quick. Suddenness, can change direction. He's pretty smart. He processes pretty well. He has really good hands. He has 35-inch arms. I think Charles Grant's it, man. Now, he's not perfect. There was a play where he lost against Chris Jones. Obviously, best defense tackler, one of the best defense tackles. It's not a terrible rep, but he does get swiped initially. He tries being aggressive. Probably knows that, hey, Chris Jones is lined up on the other side here. He tries being aggressive. He gets swiped. He loses. Chris Jones beats him to the inside. But I do like how he sticks to Chris Jones, right? He kind of tries staying right on his hip, tries pushing him upfield. It's a losing rep at the end of the day. But I do like the recovery element within this. He'll have to develop. There was a screenplay that I had noticed as well. He put his hands on the 3 technique, even though he has a defensive end to the outside of him. He doesn't influence the edge upfield. No one really falls for this. And his guy's kind of there. There's a couple other guys there. To be fair, this is kind of a bad design. If you're running a screen to the left, why would you put a tight end on that side? That too, the tight end releases to the outside of the defensive end. If you're running a screen to that side, put that tight end in the slot, let him run deep, and then that defensive end has no one influencing him, right? Because on this play here, the tight end, by him releasing to the outside, what's happening is that defensive end has to take a narrow, slower rush to the inside. This is a bad play design, right? You can't really blame Charles Grant. But regardless, he has to learn to play mind games, right? You have to learn to kind of, when a guy is going to go upfield, you got to figure out how you're going to let this guy beat him. If you're Charles Grant, you're beating everybody to the landmark 100% of the time. And then the one time you kind of let a guy go upfield, I think is kind of a giveaway. So he'll have to learn the mind game aspect of it. Overall, man, I like what I see from Charles Grant, man. I don't say it lightly. I think this guy has it. We'll see if he actually develops into it. Obviously, this is a video where I'm putting my prediction out there. I like him. I think he's going to end up becoming really good for the Raiders. We'll see if the Raiders give him enough time to develop. And we'll also see if they actually use him as an offensive tackle. There's a chance he ends up playing guard. He kind of, I don't want to use like the guard that the Seahawks have, because Gray Zabel's different. I think Zabel might be a little bit slower, but a little bit stronger. but he kind of reminds me of Gray Zabel, like with the movement at least, right? Although I think Greg's faster, but like I wouldn't be surprised if the Raiders put him on the inside as a guard. But if I'm the Raiders, 35-inch arms, 6'5", moves really well. I mean, that's the makeup of a really good offensive tackle. So if the Raiders give him the time to develop, I do think he's going to struggle a little bit this season. I think he'll give up 7, 8, 9, 10 sacks. But I think that'll also be a little over-exaggerated because we're going to have a rookie quarterback. But long term, I think the fact that the Raiders have Ashton Jeanty, Brock Bowers, rookie contracts, the fact they're going to have Fernando Mendoza, rookie contract, they're going to get Charles Grant. I think he's the future at tackle for the Raiders, and I think he'll just move back to left tackle when Colt Miller retires, or the Raiders end up moving off of Colt Miller. Charles Grant's it, man. I'm telling you guys. So we'll see what ends up happening. Let me know what you guys think. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you guys all have a great rest of your weekend, and I will see you guys next time with another video.